It is 1952 in the heart of the American wilderness, on the plains of Kansas. A paleontologist discovers the fossil of a large fish, perfectly preserved in the rock. But there is something strange about this fossil. Inside, there is another whole fish frozen in the belly of its predator for 80 million years. Two overlapping skeletons stopped simultaneously. An extraordinary scene that no one should have seen. And yet it is there in the stone, as clear as a photograph. To understand what this fossil tells us, we have to go back a long way, about 90 million years before us. At that time, where the arid plains of Kansas, Nebraska, and Dakota now stand, there was no land. Instead, there was a vast inland sea that cut the North American continent in two, with this warm, shallow sea in between, but large enough to support an ecosystem of a complexity and violence that is hard to imagine. Marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs and mosasaurs, powerful sharks such as Cretoxyrhina, but also a whole fauna of fast and unpredictable hunters. A world where every creature could become a threat at any moment. A world saturated with life where each level of the food pyramid was occupied, defended, and fought over. A world where being born guaranteed nothing, and where the line between predator and prey could shift in a fraction of a second. And among all the hunters of this inland sea, one predator stood out not for its size, because there were much larger creatures, but for its way of killing, radically different from everything else around it. It was called Zifactinus. Its name literally means sword point, a direct reference to its long, sharp teeth. As an adult, this large bony fish measured between 4 and 5 mm long. To give you an idea of the size, it is the size of a great white shark. But the comparison ends there because the Zifactinus was a fish belonging to a group that is now completely extinct. Scientists sometimes call it the bulldog fish because of its prominent lower jaw that juts out, giving it an almost aggressive expression when at rest. Imagine a barracuda twice its size with dense muscles, powerful pectoral fins that allow it to change direction with disconcerting speed. And above all, this mouth lined with long, pointed teeth that curve slightly backwards, designed not for cutting or chewing, but solely for holding, to prevent any escape. Once a prey entered these jaws, it did not come out because it did not hunt like the others. It did not snatch, it swallowed entirely in a single movement. A sudden acceleration from the darkness, an opening of the jaws, and the prey disappeared. This strategy was a response to an environment where the prey was fast and the water often murky. Strike fast, swallow everything before anything can react. You're probably thinking that this strategy was formidable, and you'd be right, it was, but it could also be deadly. This behavior can't be deduced from guesswork. It can be read directly into the rock. At least a dozen specimens of Zifactinus have been found with undigested or partially digested remains in their bodies. Paleontologists have deduced that some of these individuals died of indigestion, unable to pass over too large a prey. This is where the Kansas fossil makes sense. This specimen, discovered in 1952 by paleontologist George F. Sternberg, is a 4-meter Zifactinus, inside which is preserved almost intact a 2-meter long Gillicus arcuatus, half its own size. Some paleontologists believe that the still living prey managed to perforate the Zifactinus' stomach in a desperate attempt to escape, causing internal injuries that killed the predator shortly after capture. The hunter was consumed by his prey. The attacker became a victim of his own attack. And this is not an isolated case. Another specimen was found in Manitoba, Canada, with a fragment of a mosasaur fin in its jaw. a marine reptile that was much larger than itself and that is not common. Xiphactinus did not just hunt what it could reasonably swallow. It attacked prey that should have deterred it. It took risks that the logic of survival should have forbidden it, and sometimes it cost it its life. To understand why, we need to understand the exact position it occupied in this ecosystem. Because this predator, as efficient as it was not at the top of the food chain. It existed in an uncomfortable space between what it hunted and what might hunt it. There were the mosasaurs. These marine reptiles dominated the waters of the late Cretaceous with relentless efficiency. Some species reached up to 14 members in length, with jaws capable of swallowing prey whole by pulling it deep into their mouths. Faced with an adult mosasaur, the Xiphactinus ceased to be a hunter and instantly became prey. There was also Cretoxyrina mantelli, the great shark of the Cretaceous, often compared to the great white shark in size and shape, and which was clearly one of the super predators of this ecosystem. The Xiphactinus therefore lived in a constant state of tension, being fast enough to capture and discreet enough not to be captured in turn. And this tension had an enormous energetic cost. Each failed hunt was an expense without compensation. Each undersized prey did not compensate for the effort. This may have driven the animal towards ever larger, more profitable, but also increasingly dangerous targets. This sea has disappeared, but it has left its mark. The cliffs of chalk that can be seen today in this region are the sediments of this sea. This limestone was formed from the microscopic shells of plankton that accumulated layer upon layer over millions of years to form the rocks that paleontologists excavate today. And in these rocks the conditions were ideal for fossilization. The deep waters of this sea often lacked oxygen, which slowed down decomposition and allowed for exceptional preservation of the skeletons. This is why Kansas, now located in the heart of a continent, is one of the richest marine paleontological sites in the world. And it is in this chalk that Sternberg found his fossil. Two fish frozen in the same rock as if stopped at the exact moment of their encounter. 66 million years ago, everything stopped. The asteroid that ended the Cretaceous period didn't just kill off the terrestrial dinosaurs, it also collapsed marine food chains. And this vast inland sea, already slowly retreating under the effect of the uplifting Rockies, ended up disappearing completely. Xiphactinus disappeared with it, swept away by a change too sudden to give anything time to adapt. But what this fossil continues to tell 80 million years later is something more specific than the simple extinction of a species. It's the story of a predator trapped by its own logic. An animal that had built its entire survival on a strategy of excess, on the ability to swallow bigger, faster, more often, and which sometimes died as a result. This is not a lesson in caution. The waters of the Cretaceous didn't reward caution, they rewarded efficiency. But it also served as a reminder that the line between a winning strategy and a fatal one could be drawn by the size of a prey, by a single miscalculation, or by a slightly overfull belly. 80 million years later, the Xiphactinus still stands in a Kansas museum with its last prey still in its belly, and it's hard to tell whether it's a symbol of power or a warning.